Oh, I'm proud of you. You did much better that time. All right, guys. So, wasn't that symphonic winds? Weren't they just amazing, by the way? All right. So we're going to start this next portion of the concert with the Bixby Wind Ensemble, and this piece is a piece called "Strange Humors" by John Mackey. You actually heard "Sheltering Sky" by John Mackey in the previous ensembles group selection. This piece was originally written, it was written very early on in the composer's career. He actually wrote it when he was at Juilliard, getting his degree in music composition, and he wrote it for a saxophone quartet and percussion ensemble to act as an accompaniment with a ballet dance troupe. And then later on, a conductor convinced him to expand that to a full wind ensemble version, which is what you're going to hear today. So this is this is Strange Humors by composer John Mackey. Hope you enjoy. Okay. Well, thank you for that exuberant applause. That gives us all the energy we need for this next piece. This next piece is it's a very meaningful piece of music. This is written by composer David Slonka. He just passed away just recently, and I think he's one of the masters of wind band composers. There's a lot of great composers out there, but I think well past my days, people will still be playing David Slonka's music because he is really a genius when it comes to orchestration, but also the meaning behind the music, which I think is so profound. This piece is called Traveler. And I think it has so many meanings. I'm going to let you kind of formulate your own meanings from this piece. There's lots of different textures throughout the piece. There's fast parts, there's slow parts, and the end is very sparse. There's very few instruments playing. And it dissipates to finally one singular note played in the marimba in the back of the ensemble. Now, David Slonka was a very spiritual person. He would go for long walks in the wilderness. And I actually had the opportunity, I've told the musicians in the ensemble, had the opportunity to sit with him and talk to him about his composition, about his compositions and how he approaches writing music. And he talked about how music came to him, and he was a mere vessel for the music, and put it on the paper for people to play. And he didn't write with a computer. He sat down, and the only instrument he would use was a piano and a pencil. And so I think that's something that's very poignant, and I think it definitely comes across in the style of his music. So this piece is called Traveler. I think it can be conveyed as the life journey of a person, from birth to the end of one's journey. It can be looked in many different ways. So I'll allow you to have your own interpretation of this, as the musicians will as well. This is Traveler by David Slonka. Thank you guys for that. That was amazing. This next piece really sends you out the doors on the right note. Okay, this gives you a lot to think about, the piece that we just played, Traveler. This next piece is called Un Cafecito, which means, does anybody know what that means? Little coffee. Okay, so Little Coffee, this is Un Cafecito. It is written by a Cuban-American composer, Dennis Linus, and it just came out. The actual All-State Wind Ensemble just played it 2 years ago, and they're doing a great job with it. There's a lot of notes. I'm going to tell you that right now, so don't try to count them. You won't get there. Okay, I also want to say this group just got back from Kansas City, where they performed at a Wind Ensemble Festival with a bunch of other wind ensembles from around the Midwest, and they did just an amazing job. And I was very moved with that piece, Traveler, that we just played on Thursday last week, but that definitely took it to another level, so I think that was beautiful. Okay, I won't indulge you anymore with that. Un Cafecito, thank you so much for being an amazing audience. Hope you enjoyed yourself. So, thank you again for being an amazing audience. Thank you for being amazing parents, guardians, and friends of the family of all these amazing kids. Because I know I speak for all the directors. It is a blessing and an amazing joy every single day to stand in front of these students and hear brilliance come out of 16, 17, 18-year-olds. I cannot imagine what they're going to do when they're 30 and 40 years old. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.